Hello and welcome to the AOD Fitness podcast, where we discuss all things health and fitness. I'm Kyle, and with me today we have Mike and Adam. Little wave at the camera. Hello. So you guys listen to the podcast. Today we'll be talking about recovery and best practices. Now, Mike, I know you've got a little piece written up there. So you want to just define?
Yes. Yeah, let's go. So before we get started, we thought it would be worth mentioning why it is we need to recover, aka we want to define what stress is, the different types of stress, and something known as a stress response. So we'll just go straight away. Sound. We can define stress as a disruption of homeostasis, and it can be real and external, or perceived and internal. So basically what I mean is it's not just physical stress all the time, although obviously that's going to be a large one that we're talking about today with regards to athletic performance and training. But actually there are 6 different types of stress, including physical, mental, emotional, existential, relational, and environmental. Now, we're not going to dive into those, but I thought it would just be worth mentioning, because when you look at an athlete or a person's stress as a whole, we call it their allostatic load. So that means all of the stresses in somebody's life added up in the 6 categories that I just mentioned above. And of course, a lot of stress can be coming from physical, but it could also be coming from other parts in an athlete or a person's life. Now, when we're actually talking about a stress response, what we mean is there are 4 different stages. Sorry, that was a bit incoherent, but 4 different stages. So we start initially in homeostasis, where there's no, everything's fine. The body is in a state of balance. Then we have this disruption, whether it be physical or mental. For most of us, that's going to be training disruption, causing a physical stress. Then we have an alarm response, where the body is actually in a state of, say, inflammation. And then we have a recovery stage. And today, what we want to talk about is how can we optimize that recovery stage with different recovery protocols.
Cool. Yeah.
So, yeah.
I'm in a state of homeostasis for 6 years. So I think obviously the goal of this is to talk about recovery and active recovery, right? And the difference between what's on active recovery and then like passive recovery, right? So you take a passive recovery or passive recovery day, if you like. That'd be, Sunday I'm doing jack shit. I'm just laying on the sofa watching Netflix and chilling out, right? That's my fully resting, lots of sleep, just eating fish. And then active recovery is where we're going through the process of trying to help our bodies recover, work through all these different things we can use, right? So we'll cover a lot of these, whether it's a sauna, ice bath, actual active recovery work, soft tissue work, all that sort of stuff. And again, the sleep is sort of an aid for that. So I think start by, everyone loves using that buzzword of active recovery. Like you say yourself, right? I think people just love to say they're doing it, just put it on Instagram. Whereas I think there needs to be a definition of what that actual active recovery means, and make sure people are doing it properly to aid in recovery, and not, just as Mike was saying there, putting more stress on the body through doing more exercise basically. So when we talk about active recovery, I think the main thing we want to do is, this could be, a walk, it could be a swim, it could be a bike, it could be something really basically low intensity and low load on the body. So if someone's there, like Mike is that example, where maybe a little bit not as learned in this, if someone's like, I'm going to do double unders in my active recovery day, it's like, it's not active recovery, right? You normally be actively recovering and doing double unders. Things that are just going to keep your cycle speed fairly low, tension in the body low. So that's why those movements are very cyclical, monostructural, are going to be easy. And then trying to keep to the very low end of like zone 2, right? So you'd say 60, 65% of your max heart rate if you've got a heart rate monitor. Or for those people that don't, maybe you go down the route of a pace that you can keep a conversation the entire time, right? It's okay to get a sweat on, that's what you want at the end of it, but the focus of an active recovery piece should be, I'm going to go into this feeling a bit sore, feeling a little bit beat up for my week. I'm going to do 40, 60 minutes of easy aerobic work. When I finish, I'm going to feel better than when I started, right? The purpose of this is to get blood flowing, breathe a little bit, sweat a bit, and then when I'm done, I'm going to be like, yeah, I feel sweet. I'm going to move on with the rest of my day, and that's actually helping me recover, right? Not go the other way. I think it's so easy for people to push active recovery way too hard, and then, you're just adding up more stress on the body, and it's not been an active recovery day, pushing your energy systems way too hard, and you're beating yourself up. So, I think those are just some good guidelines for people to follow in terms of actual active recovery work.
On that, because when you mentioned about zone 2,
Yeah. Go on.
so people use that zone 2 as recovery.
Yeah.
Where do you guys see it? Because I think zone 2 is still something.
It's like that's
Not when above, but above the recovery state of
Zone-
which
zone
the 2 in an active recovery day.
No, zone 2 is still a energy systems training, right? So still getting a response from zone 2. But I think there's a difference between working at like high end of zone 2 and then like a very low end of zone 2 and just sort of using it. So I guess it's like, again, it's then how you define zone 2 with like a 5-zone model, like a 7-zone model, whatever it is. So I think you got to look at when you're doing zone 2 work for actual aerobic training, you're trying to, hit to the higher end of that. Maybe you're like pushing a little bit into zone 2 and trying to like back off from that, or you're trying to hold paces and trying to say, right, last week I managed this output at a zone 2 heart rate. I'm going to try and do the same, but maybe push that output a little bit higher. Where when I'm saying zone 2, it's just a rough guide to be like, it shouldn't be anywhere above that, right? Yeah, like if you go in anywhere above that, you're pushing too hard, right? Zone 2 obviously is quite still wide range of, heart rate. So if you're sticking to the lower end of that, then, you're going to be fine. I think also then that comes down a little bit person dependent as well. If you're someone who doesn't do much zone 2 work or any zone 2 work at all, doing that, maybe it's going to have a little bit more of a response on the body than for someone else who does.
90 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah, again, the difference between a 90-minute zone 2 session or like a 40-minute zone 2 session, right? So, that's a good point. I think it's, again, just not pushing it too hard. If you're unsure on like an active recovery day, easy is always going to be better, right? Like I say, if you start to feel like it's starting to get harder, I'm starting to breathe heavier, or can't hold that conversational pace, probably pushing it too hard, just back off a little bit. That's going to be a whole other ballgame or something. Zone 2 podcast. You can have one of those.
Let's just keep it short.
Yeah.
Active recovery. Cool. Mike, got any pointers coming up from this or further on?
For that one, not really. I agree with everything Adzi said. I often prescribe, and you've mentioned it before with some of the CPD stuff we did, breathing intensities.
Yep.
And so, if you're having to breathe, for me, I prescribe nasal breathing a lot for recovery stuff. But even then, some athletes are able to work quite hard on nasal breathing capacity. So, easy nasal breathing should be probably the intensity that I prescribe anyway for active recovery protocols. So, but other than that, no, nothing to add really.
I think you can do like movement work, right, for recovery, like just because it says that. Yeah, exactly. Right?
Every 3 minutes, get off, do something.
Exactly. But it's like, again, that difference between, doing strict pull-ups, probably not going to be for most people any form of active recovery. You do that just because the tension that you're holding is a little bit too high. But doing that, lunges, bear crawls, like this movement work, like flow stuff on the floor, it's going to help take through full range of motion and stuff like that could easily be implemented as well.
I think what you said there is when it's like you should come away feeling better.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, so
top priority.
Everyone, that's going to be a little bit different, and it's knowing what that is for you, and then you got to learn your body a little bit more and know and what me, and obviously using a coach to help you figure that out as well, right?
Yeah, cool. So if we're moving into like the points of like what's the best recovery tools, maybe if I call it that, that you could suggest, and also I suppose it's going to be a little bit person dependent as well, like each to their own.
Yeah, so Adzi and I have comprised a few different topics to go through of some of the most popular and also some new sciencey ones as well, if you want to call it that, or some ones that we're interested in. So we'll go through those now. Cool. I'll try and keep it fairly brief. We do have a lot of notes on all of this stuff. So the first one I'm going to talk about is sauna benefits and protocols. I know it's very popular with a lot of my athletes and popular with a lot of people anyway. So while probably a little bit more research is needed to understand all the mechanisms that are involved, there is a good amount of scientific literature out there that have explored the potential health benefits of sauna use. So I want to quickly go through the health benefits and how they can transfer over into being performance benefits. And then I'm also going to quickly outline 2 different protocols that you can use in the sauna so that the listeners can actually take that away. And when they go to the sauna this week or whatever, they can implement that. So the first one is the cardiovascular benefits. So we know that sauna use can improve cardiovascular function by increasing heart rate and blood circulation. The heat exposure essentially causes vasodilation, right? And that has been associated with a reduced risk of cardiovascular diseases such as heart disease, stroke, and hypertension and things like that. So that's a very key one in the literature. That's quite a well-documented one for health benefits that everyone could do, not just athletes, but I encourage like my parents to get in the sauna and things like that. Maybe not with me, a bit weird, especially if you're in Berlin, eh? There is some research into improved respiratory function, but that mainly is to do with people who have mild respiratory conditions, so I don't really want to go into that loads. The ones that I want to focus on mainly are endorphin release and stress reduction, which has been shown, so sauna has been shown to stimulate the release of endorphins. There are natural sort of mood enhancers, and they also lead to a feeling of relaxation and reduced stress. Detoxification, so sweating, profuse sweating in the sauna can promote the excretion of certain heavy metals and toxins through the skin, although it is essential to note that the primary root, actually, you know what, don't worry about that. Basically, sweating, excretion of certain heavy metals and toxins through the skin, and then the main one that everybody's going to be concerned with is going to be muscle recovery and pain relief. So there has been some studies to show that sauna bathing can promote muscle relaxation and alleviate muscle soreness. This is due to an increased blood flow to the muscles and may also aid in the recovery process. So that's why you should be saunaing. Okay, but how do you sauna? I've got two different protocols that we can go through. One is focused on, well, they're quite similar, but one's based on stress reduction and one's based on optimizing recovery, which you might think are the same thing, but actually they might not quite be the same. So to start with, for the stress reduction protocol, you want to be looking at 70 to 80 degrees, which is quite hot, but it's also a little bit personal. If that's stressing you out, you can't do that. You can definitely start lower and build up to that. You want to start with a 10 to 15 minute session, and gradually, as you become more comfortable, increase to 20 to 30 minutes for an ideal session length. Preferably for stress reduction, use it in the evening after a stressful day or before bed. That actually comes with a host of other factors, because just by being in the sauna, typically light exposure is going to be low. Things like that. You're going to be not looking at your phone, and that comes into a host of other relaxation techniques and benefits. And then you want to aim to do 2 to 3 sessions a week with a gradual cool down in either a cold shower or just in a cooler room. So you want to make sure that after you do this session of, say, 20 to 30 minutes, you don't just like hop straight into bed and try to go to sleep. You need to cool down gradually as well, whether that is in a cool shower or just going outside or something like that. All that's going to be really good. For recovery optimization, we're looking to slightly increase the temperature to 80 to 90 degrees to enhance muscle recovery. And then if possible, do a 30-minute session or longer. Obviously, this would be ideally done on days of highly intense physical activity to promote recovery. And again, you also want to have a gradual cool down afterwards, as well as aim for 2 to 4 sessions a week to optimize muscle recovery. So yeah, with that, it's always crucial to remember that you want to stay hydrated. And also you should probably consult with a doctor or a healthcare professional before starting a regime, especially if you have any sort of...
Just covering your back.
Yeah, if you have these sort of... then yeah, the bars more. Yeah. It's, well, if they're dead, I suppose they can't. But yeah. So yeah, that was it really for my sauna protocols and health benefits. Definitely one that I personally use. I know a lot of the team uses as well. For me, it's as much as a mental stress reliever as it is a physical. Yeah. It's a really, it's time away from the outside world. You can't take your phone in there, anything like that. I find that very good thing. Yeah.
Cool.
Well, I've got to, I'm obviously going to go to the next topic, but I've got 2 things to talk about. One, it's funny because obviously that's such stress relief and performance benefits. I think similar to what we're talking about active recovery, you can fuck yourself up in the sauna. Yeah, you can go way too hard. And I feel like Harry does that a lot, right? We'll be in the sauna, and then you look over to it, it'll be 15 minutes in, and his head will be in his hand. That'll be just like his legs shaking, like trying to get through, right? That's just one of those things where you're doing it for recovery benefits. Yeah. Don't get yourself to that point. Like, go outside, cool down, come back in and go. The other one was actually one that, again, I haven't researched much at all, and no one has the time for this, but I'd love it if someone did. there's a study, I think I saw it from Huberman, or maybe even a Ben Greenfield podcast, or potentially both, about growth hormone.
Right.
Yeah, saw the session.
Okay.
And I think it was a study, and it was something like 14, 15% growth hormone release, like increase.
Yeah.
14, 15 times growth hormone, release. If you did like 2 hours in the sauna across like a day, obviously you know time that. In terms of temperature wise, I don't really know, but I think it's like 30 minutes, get outside 5 minutes, 30 minutes, then later in the day you do the same again. It's gonna be like 2 hours in a sauna session. And yeah, it's meant to be, I just do that once a week, but never tried that. Never.
Anyone's asking what I own.
Yeah, I mean, there's that time. Sauna at home. Let's go.
Yeah. If you're unemployed and you have a sauna, give that a go. Let us know.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Nice. Cool.
So yeah, next one we'll talk then about is going to be, again, the other one that's probably exactly the same as sauna in terms of it's all the rage at the moment. Everyone's loving it in Lumi baths. You get all the drop is ice baths, right? Ice bath coloring. And I think first thing to say about this is there's a misconception about the purpose of ice baths and the role it has in recovery. And people will be like, yeah, I've just done a really sweet hard session. I'm going to go hop in the ice bath. And how that actually is detriment to your, not recovery, but detriment to your performance long term, right? So let me think about what an ice bath does. Whole point is you get in and it blunts your like inflammation response from training. So say I've gone and done a hard strength session, and I hop in the ice bath, it's stopping all that sort of like blood flow and like inflammation build up in the muscles, which we actually want post-training session, right? For a response to actually, simple as grow muscles, get stronger. So the whole idea of jumping in training ice bath after a session to recover actually isn't what we want to do. Now, the reason you see it at things like the games or, people doing it over a course of competition weekend is because you want at competition weekend, that's exactly what you want, right? You want to try and delay getting sore, DOMs, anything like that. So jump in an ice bath after you've done a session, after you've just done an event, and when you've got another event to 2 hours time, perfect. That's exactly what you want to do. But it's just know the difference between the two of them. I'm not trying to replicate that in training. Competition, by all means, that's what they're there for. Also, when it's fucking hot out and you want to cool down, and ice bath, yeah, great for dropping that water temperature. But I think that's the first thing to talk about that. Next thing then is why we would ice bath and how to use an ice bath to aid, maybe not just recovery, but in terms of like the benefits of an ice bath in general, just making sure people are aware of what that is and why we're going to use it. The first is obviously the main sort of like response that you get from an ice bath is one going to be that sort of grit and resilience for one, right? If you're talking about that, again, an ice bath isn't comfy. It's not meant to be comfy. It's hard to do. So in terms of like almost like a mental training aspect, there is that element to it, right? If you get an ice bath, it's like, this is fucking uncomfortable. I want to get out, forcing yourself to stay in for length of time, talk about in a minute. That can have almost like a training benefit, which can carry over into CrossFit, right? So that's one thing there. Other thing to talk about then is saying the neurological like releases of chemicals that help with enhancing our like mood and focus, because that's the big one that we get from ice bath when we use an ice bath, right? So first one is get big dopamine release when you go into an ice bath, or get out of an ice bath, I should say. So things like that is actually going to enhance your mood, right? You're going to feel better. You're going to feel like you're, get out of an ice bath, you're like, yeah, let's go. I feel sweet. I'm going to feel really good from doing it. So that's the benefit of that. The other one then is a release of epinephrine and neuroepinephrine, which helps to enhance like your focus. So that's again why when you get out of an ice bath, you feel like pretty like alert and switched on, because your body's sort of like flight response. Like, you're jacked up because you're trying to stop yourself getting out of water, but you're wanting to. So it's those chemical responses that basically help to, over time, enhance our mood, enhance our focus, and then also that will, it won't have an effect on recovery, but if all those things are feeling better throughout the day, and then it allows you to do more work, you don't feel sluggish, you don't feel, tired, that's obviously they're going to help in the long run for recovery. That being said, I think then protocols and how to use this is really, it should be more of a daily thing you're trying to do. Maybe not daily, but a few times a week in an ice bath, not just on a recovery day or a rest day, right? You go in the ice bath, ideally in the morning, because of those like focus responses you get from it. And as well, it can, because of that, if you try and do it, 10 minutes before bed, you're going to be switched on, you're going to be alert. It's not going to help with sleep. So I think trying to get in an ice bath 2 to 4 times a week really would be a good place to start. 1 to 5 minutes at a time. So start real easy, start like one minute at a time. In the mornings, then build yourself up to like 5-minute exposures. Temperature-wise, it's going to be person dependent, right? There's no like one size fits all, because what's cold for me might be very different to what's cold to you. So as a gauge, you want something that's uncomfortable, but you can stay in it, right? Safe at the end of the day. It's not like I'm going to fucking freeze and my lips turn blue and I'm going to like die. Shiver response is absolutely fine, but you don't want to be like, wow, this is like, I'm numb and I can't move sort of thing. So over time, again, you can drop the temperature through that, but just as a rough guide, in the mornings, 1 to 5 minutes, start nice and cold, build up. Trying to hit an exposure really through a week, like 10 to 15 minutes to a good starting point for a whole week, and then you can build from there. But I know there are some things also then, we can talk about this now, people use contrast therapy, right? So people use like combine these into one, right? Hot and cold. So I know Mike's done a little bit on this in terms of reading, but this is something we haven't maybe covered as much, or there's not as much research on it, right? But it's like, how can we use that to maybe try and get the benefits of both if you're maybe short on time or don't have
like a session sort of time.
Yeah. So I said exactly, right? Yeah. So you're not having to do all this all at once.
Yeah. I don't have loads on this, but what I do have is a neat little protocol somebody could do, especially for like an acute injury.
Yeah.
So say, you've got, you've got sore elbows or whatever, you've strained your hamstring or something like that. There is quite really solid research into some contrast therapy and protocols there. So what you want to do basically is have a 10 to 15 minute period of bathing in hot water with the limb or the affected area of like 38 to 40 degrees, which is typically what like most hot tubs type things will be. So if you're at a spa or a gym and you've got access to that, that's going to work. Followed by a minute to 3 minutes of cold exposure, again with the limb. That doesn't need to be ice cold, but it does need to be pretty cold. Something like, I think the notes were like 8 to 12 degrees. So that's colder than, is that colder than the sea?
We see.
Yeah. But yeah, pretty cold. Okay. And you can repeat this 2 to 3 times. And this has been shown to have really good inflammation response to help with healing in certain parts of an acute injury. But I don't have loads on that, so I don't want to go. Do you have anything else?
I'll do a bit more on that. I think just in terms of if you have a sauna, have an ice bath, obviously, lucky enough to do that. But you don't have loads of time to, get in every morning, 5 minutes ice bath and then do a 30 minutes sauna. So you can combine, obviously, the two. But I think just some rough guides for that is do it almost as, the protocol sort of like combined. So I'm doing 20 minutes on the sauna. I'm going to get out 1 to 5 minutes in the ice bath. Then if it is at night, kind of what we spoke about, you don't want to go straight from the ice bath trying to get ready for bed. So then going back into the sauna for that is saying again, like 10, 15, 20 minutes sort of response. That's going to help mainly with like blood flow and circulation, because you obviously go from that like vasodilation state when you're in a sauna, when your blood vessels open, to being constricted when you're in the ice bath, to then being back in the sauna. So it's just going to promote sort of like the blood really flowing. And like I said, there's not as much research on that necessarily, but it could be a case of you can almost combine the benefits of both into one. Obviously, there's a bit more evidence on splitting them up. So if you can, it'd be better to do, ice bath in the morning, sauna in the evening, but you might not have the availability to do that, right? Another thing is, again, lucky enough to have an ice bath, obviously. There is other options for this. A cold shower can work fine. It's way more accessible for people. Same sort of thing. Maybe a little bit harder to get as cold in a cold shower, but you can still get the benefits from that if you can maybe get used to it. I think cold showers are way harder than an ice bath.
Yeah.
I feel way worse. Yeah, I know why. I think
Yes,
it's like,
yeah,
exactly. Yeah. When you ice bath, you're like, get in and go. Yeah.
I think it's on top of your head. That's what is covered. On that second one, on the contrast, that would be more, I would say, more for performance recovery, right? If you're looking at it from that point of view, because of that.
Yeah, because they increase blood flow. Yeah, that'd be
Where the other two separately can act.
Yeah. So again, like
the stress effect, the gymnasium outside of just trying to stomach the body.
Don't any of these things are going to be bad for recovery in terms of it's just what, like you say, when to maybe use one versus the other sort of thing. Yeah, so it's just having that ability and almost like expanding your knowledge of what's going to work. But then again, you've got to try the things, and wow, I feel fucking amazing for doing that, and actually you feel like great from doing it. So everyone's going to be slightly different, right?
Cool. I don't know, mate. Have you got any more for us? Any other?
Oh, not fucking loads more, bro. Gonna be an hour.
Yeah, we got loads more. Loads more. So I don't want to, because Carl likes to keep these things fairly short. I've got one that I want to touch on. I'm not going to spend loads on it. time because I've got then a big one I want to go into afterwards. But the next one is red light therapy. So red light therapy, also known as photobiomodulation, is exposure to low levels of red or near infrared light. It's gained a lot of popularity in the recent years for its potential health and performance benefits. There are some reported benefits. It's still, the jury is a little bit out with it in terms of it being really solid, but I think it's worth going through. There's one really or two main things I want to talk about. I'm not going to go through loads. There is a lot of potential research on things like hair growth and skin function, things like that, but I don't want to go into that too much. The main ones I want to talk about is that there have been shown, red light therapy, has documented some reduction in pain and inflammation in conditions like osteoarthritis, but also, more specifically for us, muscle strains and chronic joint pain. Cue Harry. But seriously, the reason or the sort of mechanisms behind that, quickly, just to give people an understanding as to why that might work or why red light therapy might work, is something called mitochondrial stimulation. So really, the red and the near infrared light that you expose your body to can be absorbed by the mitochondria in your cells, and the absorption of this light leads to an increase in production of ATP, which is like our energy currency. And so what this basically leads to is it supports cellular function. So it provides the energy required for various cellular processes, including tissue repair and regeneration. So if you have an area that has an acute injury, again, like let's say, for example, a partial hamstring tear, you could, theoretically get some potential increase in recovery by exposing that area to red or near infrared light for a prolonged period of time, 15 to 20 minutes at a time, because the ATP in that, the mitochondria in that specific tissue is going to be generating more ATP, which allows for quicker healing. I don't really want to go into loads more on that. That's probably the number one thing for people who are listening for us. And you can get red light therapy devices. You can get big ones, you can get small ones for local stuff. Even now I've seen one which is like a band, a strap with the thing to really get into some specific areas. And I think that in the future, once there's a bit more research on it, could be a really solid thing. There's no, if you've got access to it now, definitely you could throw it in there. The other thing though that I do want to touch on really quick is for things like mood and mental health as well, especially in areas or places where direct sunlight is an issue. Now, obviously, we live in England, so, half the year we're pretty good, half the year's not great. If you do find that you're waking up in the dark, going to work, coming home in the dark, it could be a really good tool to implement, to sit in front of in the morning to stimulate almost natural light. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not going to replace sunlight. Sunlight is definitely the bigger and the better option. But if that's not an option, waking up, having some red light exposure in the morning, in the dark, definitely can get you, just help with the whole process of circadian rhythm, waking up, and then help with sleep in the evening as well, winding down. So yeah, that's all I want to go through on that one. Quick little touch on that. Back to you, Ads.
Yeah. Carl's wanted just to wrap this up quick. No, the only other one I wanted to chat about is obviously soft tissue work, right? Manual therapy, whether that's from an expert, obviously be much better than trying to do it yourself or foam rolling if you like. But there's obviously loads of benefits to that. So I think as a active recovery tool, or just a recovery tool full stop, if you can get seen by a specialist and actually work into areas that are especially sore, especially tight, definitely the time and day to do it, whether it's like on active recovery day. Obviously, again, don't want to be doing this before a session because it is going to cause muscle damage getting seen by a specialist. But even if they are brutal sessions, it's also going to help with so much blood flow, breaking up the scar tissue, all those things around, especially tight areas, or if you've got a little bit of a niggle or an injury and things are getting tight or they pulling on other things, then trying to see someone about that is one of probably the best recovery tools. I think can't be understated. I know I'm not talking about it much, but having an expert actually work on your body is going to really, really help. Again, the issue with that is price. People can't go and get a massage 2 times a week all the time, but if you can include it on active recovery days, once a week would be amazing. Once every 2 weeks, once every 3 weeks, once every 4 weeks, just as much as you can actually afford to get in to see someone. I think that's going to be a really, really big help on recovery, that people would see straight away the benefits from it. Obviously, you can try and do stuff yourself, the cross-ball, foam rollers, theraguns, but it's going to be a little bit, diminishing returns because it's just so much harder to do it yourself, right? As good as these tools are, they're not the same as someone getting fucking an elbow into that sort of thing, right? So, yeah, if you can, definitely go and see a therapist on recovery days. Will be
once a week is generally pretty good.
That would be great. If you go once a week, that would be, yeah.
And just this is actually me kind of asking a question now, and I don't want to go off on a rabbit hole massively, but bringing all this back to the stress response I spoke about earlier. So I'll make sure the mic is getting me. What we're actually looking at doing here, just so for people's, so there's no misconceptions, what we're actually looking to do here, right, is helping an inflammation response, right? So for a lot of this stuff, like the saunas, like the soft tissue, what you just mentioned, it's not like we're not trying to stop inflammation. We're actually trying to promote it so we can have that recovery period. Is that sort of right?
Yeah. I think it depends on obviously the form of recovery. Like I say, the ice bath's not necessarily to do that, but combining it with sauna might. When you get soft tissue work, it's not necessarily going to be like a straight away stopping inflammation. Again, you're trying to promote blood flow to the area, but then also that, say I've done a really hard session Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I'm sore as shit, and I go see a massage therapist on Thursday because of that inflammation's tightened up all my muscles. It's then trying to sort of work that out a little bit, right, reduce muscle tension. So there is obviously the blood flow, help you get from like soft tissue work. That's why people like to foam roll after sessions and stuff, because you get more blood flow to that area. You're not stopping any inflammation. But when you go and see someone, it's probably more about the actual fact of I've tightened up my pecs loads from doing loads of bench. I'm going to try and bring muscle up in a couple of days' time. So if I can open this up and actually relieve some of that scar tissue and that build up of inflammation in that muscle to loosen it out a little bit, stop it being as tight, that's going to then help with the training through the rest of the week, right? Try and avoid injuries from over the tight muscles.
It's like using the tools from a daily basis to try and get you back in the gym ready to do the training position for the next day.
I've got
from this performance.
I've got the perfect recovery protocol we do on a recovery day to finish off with, don't worry.
Okay,
All those who want to do it.
Well,
on Mike.
Okay, but before we do the perfect recovery, we're going to talk about sleep.
Yes, on this one.
Yeah.
So I was hoping you guys were obviously going to bring this one up.
Yeah.
From a personal.
Yes. Go on.
I sleep well.
Mm-hmm.
I would say well.
So when you say that, you're not waking up in the night?
Maybe once.
Okay.
Maybe once, but when I'm asleep, I'm asleep. And I'm probably getting 10 hours. I sleep well.
Wow.
Go. Right?
Flex.
So you're getting maybe next one. From that though, I would say, yes, I probably feel good from that, but I still definitely have to get the body moving, and I think people say, if I get an extra charge, they're going to wake up and just be like, well, I'm ready to go and hit your session that day or whatever you can. I mean, I'm still wake up sort of shit, even though my sleep's good.
Yeah. Well,
so what I'm trying to say is yes, you got to enhance your sleep if it's poor, get it, because it's a big one. But also don't think that why if I'm sleeping more, why isn't it working? Don't just go, do you know what? I'll just go back to staying up till 6. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, there obviously are lots of other factors, like we spoke about. Like you're talking about physical signs of stress.
Yeah.
But if you are in a period with work or life where mental stress is high, relationship stress is high, this stuff also is going to be adding on to that. So by controlling all these variables, it's about bringing everything down, like 10% or 20% as opposed to just the one. So your sleep's on point, but what about your nutrition? We've spoken about that before. Yeah. And that's going to have, it's hard to weigh in magnitudes of effect, but nutrition is going to have certainly a large effect on recovery. More or less than sleep, it's very hard to say based on how poor or good each of those things are. So yeah, I mean, adequate protein intake is also going to be something big for DOMs. We're talking about nutrition now, not even sleep. But yeah, so it's managing all these things. But it sounds to me like your sleep's pretty good. I want to go through quickly.
Go on.
Just quickly, I'm going to list some of the benefits of sleep. I think a lot of people will know them. But then what I want to talk about is how you can optimize your sleep. and things like that. So with sleep, plays a huge role, health and performance. We've got things like improved cognitive function, essential, it's essential for memory consolidation, learning, problem solving. We've got enhanced physical recovery, because we know during sleep the body undergoes repair and restoration processes, promoting things like muscle recovery, tissue healing. Growth hormone secretion is also increased during deep sleep, which again will aid with the physical recovery side of things. We've got immune system support, mood regulation, cardiovascular health, even helps with things like weight management, because a lack of sleep can disrupt balance of hunger, regulating hormones, stuff that we talked about, leptin, ghrelin, things like that, which can lead to increased appetite or higher likelihood of weight gain. Athletic performance obviously is going to be improved by managing all of these things. And we also know there's a lot of research on sleep deprivation and injury risk going up. Not going to go into that massively. Then there's stress reduction and just longevity and overall health. There's various studies showing that the difference between sort of 7 and 9 hours sleep in terms of overall mortality rates and life expectancy favors the biggest ones. Okay, now don't want to go into detail on loads of that. I think a lot of people know
That sleep.
that sleep is king or queen. But what I want to talk about is how people can, especially athletes, can maybe optimize their sleep, or busy people can optimize their sleep. So very quickly, I'm just going to list these things. If you want to dig into any of them, let me know. But otherwise, I'm just going to go through them. Consistent sleep schedule. That's quite an important one. I know you're quite hot on this.
Yeah.
You like to go to bed and wake up as close to the same time as you can. Research has shown that within like an hour is quite good, but any more than an hour of variance is going to have a disruption on your circadian rhythm a little bit. That's something that I personally in the long term would like to work on. But that's something that right now where my work doesn't necessarily allow for that as well. Sleep conducive environment, very, very key. So making sure that you're comfortable, dark, quiet, and restful. For most people,
Right, cool room.
most people, a cool temperature is going to be crucial as well. This is a little bit personal preference, but I would say that if your room is hot and if there's a lot of light, you could probably try and optimize your sleep by reducing one or either of those two things. A big one, a really big one, which I personally think is profound, is limiting screen time before bed. Not so easy to do for a lot of people, but for me personally, anecdotally, I've experienced big results in that. If I do have a limitation in screen time before bed, I feel a lot more relaxed and also tend to sleep a lot better. If you pair this with something like a sauna, so you drop light exposure and you sauna before bed, wow, you're really looking at a big swing, especially if you're doing that 3-4 times a week. My next point is engaging in relaxation techniques.
Yeah.
So reading, stretching. I say meditating. People very up and down about this one, because a lot of people say meditating actually makes them a bit more, can actually brings focus on the inside. So anything that relaxes you, basically. Okay, that's a bit personal. We spoke a little bit about eating big meals before bed. Again, it's a little bit more personal, but really you don't want to have a huge meal before bed, just because digestion can disrupt deep sleep. Obviously limiting alcohol intake and stimulant intake, things like that, is going to be very big. And then managing stress before bed is also very important. And then something else, fluid intake, managing that before bed. You ideally don't want to drink, I want to say 90 minutes before bed, but that can be quite tough again as well. That's about all I've got. Do you want to dig into any of those, or are you good?
Not necessarily, but yeah. I mean, is there anything that you feel like you need to cover a little bit more? I feel like that what you sort of put out there is general information out there.
Yeah,
anyway, right.
Absolutely.
Some covered.
Yeah, I think
daily
it's
basis.
one of those though where it's the basics, but if you're not doing the basics well, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So like, if there is, you have to look at yourself honestly and be like, if there's one of those that you could easily sharpen up on, it's worth doing.
Screen time. Right?
Yeah,
That'd be
probably the best one, right? An hour. If you're literally putting your phone down and then trying to go to sleep, just having 15 minutes, 20 minutes of doing something beforehand, even if it's just prepping stuff, getting your bags packed or whatever for the next day, that's going to have an effect. if you're
on mouse days training session.
yeah,
There we go.
yeah, absolutely. And then the other one I just want to talk about quickly is napping as a strategic intervention for sleep deprivation. So if you are having a day, maybe you're going on holiday, maybe you've got an early start at work, whatever, where you're only going to get 5, 6, 7 hours sleep, you normally get a lot more, having a 20-minute nap around midday the following day can actually decrease a lot of the negative effects of sleep deprivation. Yeah. So napping, I'm quite a big fan of napping. Don't always have time, obviously, to do it. But if I do have a spare 20 minutes, I do sometimes get my eye mask on, bam, 20 minutes.
Eye mask?
Yeah, eye mask definitely for me, because then it's complete blackout, especially napping in the middle of the day. So yeah, that's a lot of stuff on sleep.
Nice. Good. Okay, so I want to hear this big recovery plan that Ads has got ready to go. Just to finish up with, guys.
That's what people want at the end of the day, right? They want to know what they can take away from this and how
This is what we want to show them.
Now, this is obviously going to be, if like, you're not going to be able to do all these things. One, because logistically, money, time, like there's all these things, right? But if you are looking at how our CrossFit Games athletes recovering, this is pretty much going to be what I would assume 90% of them are doing or should be doing if they have the time and the availability, right? So in terms of a daily standpoint, we'll start with daily hours sleep-wise, 9 to 10 hours.
Yeah,
I said that? 9 to 10 hours sleep every day, right? Obviously trying to optimize that, like Mike said, as much as you can. Ice bath 4 to 5 times a week in the morning, right? Kind of that protocol you spoke about, 1 to 5 minutes at a time, uncomfortably cold but safe. Get in, get your head on the water, then come back out, sit in there 1 to 5 minutes, boom. Sauna, ideally every day if you could, like that would be ideal, but it doesn't need to be every day. You know, again, similar to ice bath, 4 or 5 times a week. If you can get into the sauna, 20 minutes, 70 to 80 degrees, we were sort of saying?
Yeah, 70 to 90, yeah.
70 to 90 degrees, something around there. And then even daily red light exposure, right? Whether it's full body, whether it's target on area, 10 to 15 minutes, something you can easily do. We've got some downstairs in the gym, just sit in front of it, turn it on, boom. That's on a daily, pretty much something you'd be doing every day if you could, right? If this was talking ideal. If I could, I would. But again, time-wise, right, it's hard to do that. Then, get to an active recovery day. Things you're going to add in, as well as all those things, are going to be 40 to 60 minutes of our really low intensity, bottom end of zone 2, biking, walking, swimming, something like that. Swimming might be a little bit harder to gauge that sort of like effort level with, but, you know, just very like movement, like we said, get a sweat on, but feel better after you've done it. And then soft tissue work on that recovery day as well, right? Getting to see someone 60 minutes ideally, just getting them working on anywhere that's overly sore, overly tight. If you can get that once a week, spot on, you'll be flying, right? All those things together, yeah, perfect.
And I would just add very quickly with the sauna, if you could, to do it in the evening before bed, and try and optimize a lot of what I just said by like limiting phone, you know, light exposure with the sauna. And then, you maybe your phone's already on your desk or whatever. You don't have desks. I don't know. I do. Yeah, no, in your room. And whatever. And then you come back from the sauna. You're not even checking it. You got your alarm set and you're up.
Yeah. I'm going to say, we just talked about CrossFit Games athletes. What about we go into, just quickly, briefly, of general pop, maybe like just on the athletes, like gym athletes. You know, I personally, if I would say that, I think I'll go daily. That will always help assist the next day. You know, if we're only actors with not a lot of money, and probably if you could at least get twice a month of manual.
Yeah, I think what we got to do, if you're looking at, obviously, like I say, this is ideal. There's no reason that, you know, if you were a daily just gym goer, you can do all this stuff fucking even better, right? You're going to be feeling fucking amazing if you just go to the gym and you don't push yourself that hard. All of these things will still work perfectly for you. Obviously, then you've got to look at, if you're short on time, don't have the money for all these things, don't have the availability to do all these things, where can you optimize it, right? So, low intensity zone 2 work on the bottom end, easy recovery day.
Downs, right?
So, cooling down after sessions. Adding in those go wards, sort of like static stretching pieces, are really good, especially if you have limitations or, you need a little bit of that soft tissue work. You can't go see someone, right? Like you say, so I'm sat at home all day, or I've gone to the gym in the morning, now I'm working. Stop for 10 to 15 minutes in the middle of the day and do some of that just so you keep your body moving and you're not sitting down, tightening up your hips, tightening up your back, sat at a desk all day, right? You know, does need to be an ice bath. Get in the shower yourself in the morning, turn it cold for 1 minute at the end of the shower, right? That's easy, something you can just do. obviously have to build up to that. Maybe that sleep isn't 9 to 10 hours. Maybe it's more 7 to 8, but it's optimizing that sleep, like Mike said, as much as you can. If you can get to a sauna, just go once a week, maybe a little bit longer if that's something that, you know, a gym near you offers you. There's not much to drop in, and just, you know, 30 minutes in a sauna, that's going to have huge benefits, right? Without having to do every single one of these things. It's just sort of meeting you where you're currently at with what you can do to optimize it. And just like you say, just because you said trying to sauna every day would be amazing.
Yeah.
You can still sauna once a week. There's huge benefits to that, right? Compared to nothing. So yeah.
Yeah, I would just add to that. Absolutely, I was listening to.
Keep going.
And we'll just add to that.
I was listening to something about a podcast recently, and they were discussing how can you get, especially for office workers, how can you implement some of this stuff, right? They don't have ice baths or saunas, or typically most places don't. So they did this protocol where 4 times a week or 5 times a week, so say Monday through Friday, 3 times throughout the day, they would get up from their desk and they would do 20 seconds of hard exercise. What they did was actually running up 4 flights of stairs. So they'd literally get up from their desk, walk the stairs, they'd run up the stairs, hard effort, and they'd walk back down, sit back down their desk, and they'd carry on. And not only did they see this fitness increase, but the main thing they saw was this increased level in productivity and mood. So if you have been still for a period of time, and you don't have an ice bath or something like that, or you don't have, you don't want to do any movement work because you're very short on time, something you can do. It doesn't actually matter the modality. Yeah, burpees. Burpees is the best one. 20 seconds of fast burpees, squats, even like a star jump, something like that. Then sit back down, and you actually supposedly get this real increase in a lot of the neurotransmitter stuff Adu was mentioning. I don't think as good as an ice bath, but it's certainly a lot more accessible.
Yes, definitely star jumps.
Should we do it now?
No.
Okay.
Don't want to win the burpees. That's
Yeah. Well, the Becker bike, man.
Shit. Right, guys. Okay, I think we've covered quite a bit there. Got into some decent stuff. Hope you guys can take some points away from that. And thanks to Ads and Mike coming on and getting a bit of research into that. It's been good. Yes, so thank you, and hopefully see you on the next one. If you like, subscribe and share for your friends if you like seeing us. And we'll catch you later.
See you guys.
Perfect.